We're going to expand and condense logarithms. So if you look from left to right, we're expanding these. So for example, if you have two things that are being multiplied, when you expand it into two different logarithms, you add them. If you're dividing, when you expand it into two logs, you subtract. And if you have an exponent, when you expand, you can bring the exponent out front. And then condensing would be going back the other way. For these first few, we want to expand the logarithms. So we have two things that are being multiplied. Remember, when you have two things that are being multiplied, you want to add them. So log base 3 of 5 plus log base 3 of x. Now that we expanded, we have more logs in the problem. The next one we're dividing, so we're going to expand it into two logs by subtracting. And square root of x is an x with an exponent, it's a 1/2. And because we have a 1/2, we can bring that out front based on this third property. This next one we have something divided by something, which means when you expand, when you're dividing, you subtract, but we can still keep going. There's an exponent here. We don't want to take out the exponent yet because the 3 is only applying to the x, but 5 is being multiplied by x cubed. So let's expand that by adding the 2. And then same here, 2 times y plus. And notice I put that all in parentheses because this whole log had been subtracted. So I want to make sure that that subtraction still applies to everything on the right. And then finally, we can bring the 3 out front and distribute the negative. There is a shortcut where we could have jumped all the way to the end. If you look at every part that's in the numerator, that's going to give you a positive log, and everything that's in the denominator will give you a negative log. So the 5 and the x cubed are in the numerator, so those both gave us positive logs, and the 2 and the y are in the denominator, so that gives us negative logs. Now we're going to work backwards and we're going to condense. Back here, one of our last steps in expanding was bringing an exponent out front. So one of our first steps in condensing is going to be bringing the exponents back in. And now that we have two logs that are being subtracted, we can condense the insides by dividing. Just be careful when you're going from here to here. Don't write it as log of x to the 4th divided by log of 2 to the 6th. Make sure when you're condensing two logs, you're only left with one log left. Here we still have 2. In the next one, we can bring the exponents back in first. And then with PEMDAS, when you have adding and subtracting, you work from left to right. So if we combine these two together first, we're adding those logs, which means we multiply the insides. And then now if we want to combine these two logs, since we're subtracting here, we're going to divide what's on the inside. And remember that shortcut, we could have jumped there all in one step because this was a positive log, this was a positive log, so the 4 and the 3 cubed are going to be in the numerator, and this was a negative log, so the 12 is going to be in the denominator. And then finally, there's an exponent, we can bring that inside. And this is actually as far as you can condense it, because when you condense, you need to be left with one logarithm, which we have, and all the exponents need to be on the inside, which we have. If you wanted to take it further, you could do x plus 3 times x plus 3 and FOIL that out, but you wouldn't need to do that here.